Our guys asked over and over, "Is that everyone?" Both captives said yes, yes, nervously. One of our guys started patting them down for IEDs while two more covered. We carefully cleared the 6th and 7th floor anyway. I got rotated in to clear 6th floor. Everything was going fine until I went to check one set of rooms where everything was a dark blue hue unlike the rest of the building. I felt very neutral, like I was neither welcome nor unwelcome, until I got to the kitchen, which had a red hue. I immediately felt horribly unwelcome, and suddenly an extraordinarily large cat started yowling at me, and I leapt off the kitchen counter and chased me out of the kitchen and out of the living room. I blinked and suddenly was back outside the set of rooms as if I'd never gone in. Simply looking at the door, I wouldn't go in. Medic tried the door and it was locked. He knocked and nobody answered, so we kept going. Chapter 22. Debrief time. Another team member cleared 7th floor, which had comms on it. Our comms guy then transitioned up there, and the security team, which ended up being on 3, ended up dispersing through the building. They were fine, only treated for minor bumps and bruises. The tangos didn't rough them up too bad, thankfully. The remaining captured Op 4 had played it off like they didn't have any weapons. Had played it off like they didn't have any weapons, which they did, only well hidden. That's fine. I didn't think we expected the security team to fight off a well-trained group like this anyway. I have a feeling, though, like this ordeal would have the security team at the building rethink their mindset and protocols. Basically, what it sounds like happened was this. The facility was trying to work on the toxin situation, and this enemy group was able to easily take advantage of the situation. People were sick, they were coming and going more often, trying to figure out what to do about the plants, and it made the security plan too weak. There was no way to keep the building locked down, which was the primary security procedure. Lock down, then call for help. No way to radio out without alerting the world that they were weak. Seeing how we came in and took care of things professionally and as ethically as possible, building management offered to start taking training from us and would change their procedures. Our CO thought that was a great idea and that we would work it into the rotation and that he just needed to work out the details with our public outreach officer, so they started talking details for a bit. Around that time, Medic wanted to go up and visit the hospital and see if he could trade for a few things, which is one of the activities he looked forward to whenever he came here. They were well stocked with supplies that he couldn't get from the normal trade hub that was local to us. He asked if I would come, and I said I would. Also, with security freed up, there was security back down in the parking garage now, so our whole team was up on the main floor. Our XO was also negotiating with their chief security officer about who got which firearms. I noticed the pile was about 4 times larger now. I noticed a SOCOM 16 in there and quite a few more SKSs and a SPAS 12. And a handgun that wasn't paling in comparison next to the Eagle next to it. It wasn't in the 1911 pile, so it must have been an FNX 45. Very cool. These guys had been crazy loaded. Geez, I wanted them all, but I knew there was a lot of people that still needed to get upgeared. Sometimes I simply had to sit out the loot fest. I don't want to be around hearing them all negotiate over that stuff. The longer I stayed and looked at the pile, the harder it would be to get over later. Yeah, medic, let's go check out the hospital wing, I mumbled sadly. At least someone would be getting cool guns today. Mine were plenty cool though, but not that cool. Oh well. We headed towards the stairs to go to the 5th floor. Chapter 23. Reluctant Reception. We asked anyone if they wanted to go with us, but nobody wanted to go. I looked back and the security team had accepted their new intern, and his older brother was extremely proud of him. People sure grew up fast, and cross-training was important. Good for them. So, away we went. Everything being safe and secure, we didn't cover each other or anything like that. We just went up the stairs normally. Everyone saved the elevators for emergency and because of power. This place ran off a combination of hydro, solar, and wind. They could use the elevator a couple times a day with the battery reserves and a weight system. The lights stayed off in most places during the day. The building had been specifically designed to be certified to a high environmental standard. One of the things that meant was that the building let in an unusual extra amount of light, the maximum amount of hours in the day possible. It also meant the building generated nearly all of its own power. As we went up the stairs, I thought to myself about the power setup. Everywhere outside was wind generation, and the entire roof had solar panels set up. Solar panels all had special rotators where a tiny amount of power was used to move with the light to capture the maximum amount of light possible. Even in cloudy days, the solar panels could gather quite a bit of energy for the batteries. The only time they needed to be maintained was if it snowed, when people would have to go up there and sweep the snow off. There was also a big water turbine that went to the river nearby. This provided the third power income that the building got. With all three together, the building was able to run comfortably on modern 365 days a year. The control board on the first floor had switches where everything could be turned on and off in sections. So, for example, when the basement lights weren't needed, they could be shut off. They had a couple of walk-in fridges and freezers in the kitchen area on the first floor. Those could be managed. Everything else was in the basement so it could stay naturally cooled and dry. Humidity wasn't an issue because the building had vents that dehumidified the basement. The surveillance system didn't use a lot of power. There wasn't really television or anything big and electronic for entertainment. If anyone had portable gaming systems or tablets, they were all expected to charge those, using their personal solar panel charging systems. There was a big market here for trading portable games. I had to sell my collection off way before the collapse to be prepared for it, so I only had a handful and what I was able to download onto my system before the internet got severed. I still carried my portable gaming system with me though, so I could tag everyone. And it was so amazing to see the kids' faces light up when I walked by and all their green lights started blinking. People started coming down out of the stairwell now that they knew it was safe and they weren't being held prisoner anymore. We got quite a bit of thank yous, waves, smiles, and I even got a nice solid high five from someone. Must have been really irritating to suddenly be stuck on your floor out of nowhere, but hey, everything's fine now. Adults were adults, and it was probably the kids that got the most confused. They would want to play and go back to their routine and start to get upset, and, well, you know the drill. So I thought about how happy they would be now. Especially now that they could go back to playing their handheld games with each other like they used to do. Most importantly, now that the weather was getting better and it looked like a cure was possible, the kids could maybe even play outside more. Some of the kids had started to trickle out in between and around their parents to see everything that was fine and back to normal. Some of them even had their little handheld systems out, and they all started blinking. I held my gaming system out to and waggled at them, which was blinking also. They looked at me like, holy crap, he has one. I looked at them and winked as I passed. It was sort of an old school reminder of how things used to be. They could all share how they passed one of the security guys and show my avatar in their system off to their friends. So I always made sure my system was at full charge when I came here and tried to pass as many kids as I could. I had seen several out playing already and had hoped to pass a few more. Thankfully, any rough and tumble clearing basement hadn't bashed it up too bad. It was basically indestructible, which was good. There were always some kids up in the hospital recovering from something or the other. I put my handheld gaming system away and thought some more. Maybe I could go brighten their day or read them a story while Medic trades for whatever he does. I think he was saying he needed more tubes and bags for IVs or something. I looked at him and he was smiling and waving at everybody also. When we got up to floor 5, we looked up at floor 6 and saw more people. We stepped back for a second and smiled and waved at them also. They smiled and waved back, and by now people were starting to congregate between the floors again like they used to. Before going into the hospital, I took a second to look up to see what was going on at floor 7. That floor was dedicated to communications, and it seemed like people were happy to be able to get back into that room right away, probably to get back onto the radio and tell everyone what's been going on. I know the hams up there live on the radio, like everyone else used to live on the internet. They must have been going crazy, unable to get on the radio talking to all their buddies. I'm glad the radio operators got to be back at it, because one of the neat services they provided here was getting people certified for their ham licenses. Yes, even though the Pacific Northwest had broken off from the rest of the country, since ham could go all over the world, all the amateur radio operators kept the tradition going. I actually thought it was a good idea and supported them.